With Tony Stark heroically melted to a crisp by the Infinity Stones, sorry if you're still grieving, there is an opening in the MCU for a sarcastic elder statesman with a goatee who seems to cause as many problems as he solves. Paging Doctor Strange. But it's not just textual problems that this surgeon-turned-sorcerer has been causing, because while we loved Multiverse of Madness, we couldn't help noticing a few more meta-textual issues. Continuity gaffes, retcons, you know the kind of thing. Time to punch a hole in reality and enter the plot hole dimension. Now, if you've seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it seems probable that you also saw a little movie called Spider-Man No Way Home. It came out a whole 6 months ago, but you may remember that all hell breaks loose in that movie because Doctor Strange tries to cast a spell to make everyone, including the sorcerer himself, forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. The spell naturally goes wrong and all hell breaks so incredibly loose that at the end of the movie it must be cast again with 0 exceptions. It's a tragic ending, leaving Peter alone and anonymous, an isolated superhero with no friends, no girlfriend, and no mentor. And then, in the new movie, Doctor Strange and Wong just kinda casually remember Spider-Man? Not only that, but they remember the specific spell that supposedly wiped everyone's memories. So, what gives? Now, even if you hand-wave it by saying, oh, they're all magic users, so the spell didn't affect them, or that they remember Spider-Man and the spell, but they don't remember Peter, that still seems like a far less all-encompassing spell than what we were led to believe. And surely, if Strange could remember performing such a spell, you'd think that he might decide to investigate this mysterious Spider-Man character. Now, all we're saying is, it kind of undermines the emotional ending of No Way Home, and makes Peter's future isolation seem a lot less isolating. Now, part of the conceit of Doctor Strange 2, and part of what makes it so fun, is the idea that all multiversal variants look basically identical. Different hairstyles, of course, different roles, some of them are evil, some of them are good, but ultimately all Doctor Stranges look like Benedict Cumberbatch, all Christines look like Rachel McAdams, all Baron Mordos look like Chiwetel Ejiofor, and so on. And sure, it makes sense for this movie, both visually and thematically. But the problem is that it implies a pretty strict rule that you would assume applies throughout all universes. And things start to get sticky when you consider a little movie called No Way Home, which you may remember us mentioning a few moments ago. In that movie, we see 3 different Spider-Mans, or is it Spider-Men? All of whom look very different, but all of whom are effectively the same kid, Peter Parker.
Peter Parker, Spider-Man, they're me's from other universes. They're here to help.
Now, obviously, the real reason for this was because those variants already existed in the Sam Raimi trilogy and the 2 Mark Webb movies, and it was a big fun nostalgia fest and everybody loved it. We get that. It's the same reason Patrick Stewart shows up as Professor X in Doctor Strange 2. But in terms of consistency, you have to admit it throws a pretty big wrench into proceedings. Especially if you also consider the Loki TV show, in which Loki can be Tom Hiddleston, or Sophia DiMartino, or Richard E. Grant, or, a CGI alligator. And while we're on the subject of multiversal inconsistency, we have to ask, how exactly does multiversal travel work in the MCU? Part of the problem with the shared universe, now shared multiverse model, is that viewers expect rules, canon, and continuity to make sense from movie to movie and TV show to TV show. But individual movies and shows have their own unique needs, which can mean variations in rules. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem, unless you have Season 1 of Loki airing in mid-2021, and then a little movie you may remember called Spider-Man No Way Home dropping at the end of 2021, and then Doctor Strange 2 arriving in mid-2022, all dealing with the multiverse in different ways. Then, it gets complicated. The multiverse needs to be accessed in that particular way by Loki and Sylvie because of how their story develops. It needs to be opened by Strange's backfiring spell in No Way Home to set up the plot of that movie. But then, when we get to Multiverse of Madness, suddenly there are new but seemingly very concrete rules about it, which don't quite gel with what we've seen before. After all, if a backfiring spell can open the multiverse in No Way Home, that suggests that maybe it's easier to open the multiverse than Doctor Strange 2 implies. And sorry, but no. Even if America Chavez was originally supposed to appear in No Way Home, that is not sufficient. In Doctor Strange 2, we discover that Wanda has learned of America Chavez and her ability to travel the multiverse, and she wants that power for herself. So she reaches out to some demons from different dimensions and, we guess, hires them to track the girl down. Wonder what Shuma-Gorath charges for a job like that. Now the question is, if Wanda is capable of looking through all those different dimensions and finding and learning about America Chavez and finding and hiring a bunch of demons, why does she even need America? Surely she's powerful enough to mentally project herself through the multiverse. It's just a few short steps from there to physical travel. And when it comes to Wanda, that's just the tip of the iceberg. What exactly goes on with the Scarlet Witch between the end of WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2? Because she's clearly been on a journey, but the character development is implied rather than outright stated. Now we know that at the end of WandaVision, Wanda has taken on the mantle of Scarlet Witch and retreated to a remote cabin. Everything we saw in that post-credits scene implies that she feels terrible guilt for her actions in Westview and is learning to control her powers. Of course, she's now the Scarlet Witch, and she has the Darkhold, so you could say that her actions in Doctor Strange 2 are influenced by those two things. But there's still a jump from the traumatized Wanda who freed the people of Westview at the end of her TV show to the murderous, obsessive Wanda who's living in some weird red hellscape in Doctor Strange 2. Maybe the movie could have used one more scene to clarify some of this stuff. Now here's a head-scratcher for you. Why aren't there any more Visions out there in the multiverse? After all, we've seen more than one in the Prime MCU dimension alone, if you include the White Sword variant from WandaVision. So, it stands to reason that there might be a couple more Paul Bettany-looking synthezoids wandering around in other dimensions. More to the point, if alternate universe Wanda is the real mother of a real Billy and Tommy, who's their dad? Is it Vision? Is it someone else? If it's not Vision, why are they the exact same kids? And if there was another Thanos in the universe where Strange encounters the Illuminati, a Thanos who also attacked Earth, presumably he was looking for the Infinity Stones there as well. In which case, who had the Mind Stone? Did Vision die there too? Did Paul Bettany just have better things to do? Well, I suppose the makeup does take a long time to put on. Okay, forget Vision. After all, Wanda seems to have forgotten him. He gets what, like one mention in Doctor Strange 2? Let's talk about Billy and Tommy instead. In WandaVision, we are explicitly told that Wanda created her kids out of thin air. Then, at the end of the show, the hex wears off and they disappear. Makes sense plot-wise and emotionally. But then, the post-credit scene suggests that Billy and Tommy are actually somewhere out there in the multiverse calling for help. So naturally, we expected that Wanda would spend Doctor Strange 2 searching for them. Except that's not what happens. In the new movie, Wanda just wants to find any universe where her kids exist and basically steal them from their real mother. So did she get new information in the meantime? Were those voices she heard just in her head, a symptom of her psychosis? Did the Darkhold play a trick on her? Was it just Agatha Harkness hiding in the next room putting on a high voice? Is it just a retcon? Look, we're just asking questions, okay? That's our job. God, can you believe that's actually our job?
I'm just living the dream.
One cool concept introduced in Doctor Strange 2 is the idea that our dreams are windows into the multiverse. It's a good inciting idea for the movie, one with a lot of fascinating ramifications. And while initially it seems that maybe it's just something that affects magic users like Strange, people who are more attuned to the workings of the cosmos, it's later implied that maybe everybody's dreams are actually portals into other dimensions. Which, unfortunately, opens up a whole new can of worms, filled with lots of smaller cans of worms, filled with lots of even smaller cans of worms, and so on and so forth into infinity. Because what does this mean for every other dream we've seen in the MCU? Tony Stark's PTSD dreams, for instance. Or the normal everyday dreams that normal everyday people have before they get up to go to their normal everyday jobs at Sword or Damage Control. When we dream that we didn't submit a video script on time, does that mean that in some other dimension we didn't submit a video script on time? Wait, what about those showing up at work in our underwear dreams? The people deserve to know the truth! Okay, hold on to your hats, cause this is where it gets really nerdy. In the Marvel Comics, where the multiverse has been a thing for years, the Prime Comics universe tends to be designated Earth 616. The MCU movies, while often similar, are regarded as a separate continuity that has occasionally been designated Earth 199999. Still with us? Okay. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio tells Peter Parker about the multiverse, saying that their universe, the MCU, is designated Earth 616. Of course, this turns out to be BS, a con to get Peter on his side, and everyone assumed that the reference to Earth 616 was just a fun gag for comics fans. But in Doctor Strange 2, the people of Earth 833, a dimension that knows about the multiverse, state that the MCU is in fact Earth 616. And the implication is that we accept that as definitive canon. So, to use a scientific term, what? But, nah? Seriously, if you can find a way to tie everything we just said together in a way that makes sense, you're a better nerd than we are. So, you're in the Time Variance Authority, an organization almost as old as the universe, powerful enough to hold the very gods of Asgard to account. You slip between dimensions with ease. You can detect the tiniest tremor at any point in time or space. You are staffed by immortal warrior geniuses who can go anywhere, anywhen. So where the hell were you during the events of No Way Home and Doctor Strange 2? Seriously, you've got major incursions happening all over the place. Sorcerers pulling supervillains in from other dimensions, the Scarlet Witch herself busting in and out of universes and murdering Mr. Fantastic, Captain Marvel, and the rest of the Illuminati. You've even got America Chavez punching a big hole in the fabric that separates worlds. Wouldn't you maybe send, a squad to investigate? Maybe they're just really busy with whatever Kang the Conqueror is up to. Or maybe they're suffering from staff shortages. Not even the TVA is immune to budget cuts, it seems. Bringing things back around to the late Tony Stark, and with apologies to any existential horror this might cause, but now that Doctor Strange 2 has confirmed that the souls of the damned are canon in the MCU, do we think that Tony is in hell? Like we said, apologies.